Guys, I hope you're doing well. um, I'll try to make this as a quick video. you know there's a there's a man called Tariq Nasheed. I think I've made a video about him, and there's a video of him. I think he was doing a live in asking African immigrants who are in America or even England as why they left their country. Okay. And I don't think the lady answered him the way I could have answered that question. Okay? And let me break it down. This is where most African Americans don't know. America is not just a superpower, but it's an empire. The thing what America has done, they've gotten smarter. They haven't gone the British way of going and colonizing countries. Now, they've gone there with the assumption of partnering with these countries. And what they say, the message they say is like, we are the free world. You want to be with us, so we can trade with you. And when we trade with you, so you do so well, we'll give you the market in America and all these things, right? And most countries will say yes to that. However, if you were to say no, you want to focus on your country, then you will become a problem to them. And they'll do whatever they can, use sanctions, they'll sponsor the opposition in your country to, to remove you from power. And in most cases, especially in Africa, they'll even kill you. This is what they sabotage other countries' success. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest Chinese man, he didn't live in China, unfortunately. He lived in Singapore. Is Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew, and I'll put a clip in this video, talks about how the CIA were trying to give money to his people in his inner circle to sabotage whatever Lee Kuan Yew was trying to do for Singapore. So why do you think they did that? Why would America, with all its power and all its glory, want to sabotage a country like Singapore's success? Because it's going to prove something. It will prove that it can't just be white people who could successfully run things, and we don't even have to be connected to America. We can still do well on our own. And most countries, when they see that, they'll try to follow or emulate that, which is going to make it harder for America to control them. So they want to sabotage anything like that. That's why you see like countries that are successful in Asia, like South Korea, because America moves their inflation from America and sends it over there by making sure that the products are produced from there and all those things, like Taiwan. Taiwan makes of the laptops. 90% of the laptops are made there. And the thing they do there is trying to show, like, you see, if you belong to us, you develop. But if you belong to these guys, the bad guys, we are the free world, we develop. That's why Lee Kuan Yew, they wanted to sabotage what he was doing. And guess what? Luckily, he was surrounded by people that had the same interest, that put their country first and not themselves. And they said, no, you're willing to give them $10 million. Lee Kuan Yew says this, not me. Lee Kuan Yew says it. Now, let's come to Africa. In Africa, this happens a lot. And unfortunately, we don't really get to have the people surrounding Lee Kuan Yew, like those guys over in Singapore did. Most times the enemy ends up winning, because the poverty levels in Africa are quite high, and the allure of living large and everything is extreme. That's why you should look at what happened to Thomas Sankara. Great leader. Great leader. He changed his country within 4 years. If you've never heard of Thomas Sankara, I encourage you to do some research about Thomas Sankara. In the last 200 years, in my opinion, he has been the best president the world over. In 4 years, he moved this country forward. Now, for someone who was doing that well, Why was he killed? You know who killed him? France. They killed him. Why was he killed? Because he was going to teach neighboring countries in Africa to say this is the way to go. And if they do that, then countries like France, which is, remember, France is the same country that sponsored America to become independent. So America owes France. So if France is doing something, America shuts down. Remember, who killed Gaddafi? France. Working with who? America. So when you kill someone like Thomas Sankara, it's like killing someone like George Washington. Because I'm going to pose this question to you. Had George Washington been killed before his influence was in the brains of Americans at that time, was America going to develop faster like it did if he had been killed? Because remember, during that time, a lot of Americans were pro the Queen. Even George Washington in the beginning was pro the Queen. Even Benjamin Franklin, they were pro the monarch. So they didn't want to change anything until George Washington realized that actually people were being mistreated, and that's why he started seeking to be independent. And he didn't have this big army like they tried to glorify his battles and all that stuff. Those are all lies. They were guerrilla fighters. They'll pop up. It was a small group. They'll pop up. Sometimes they were lucky. They'll pop up. All of a sudden, they kill a few people and disappear. It wasn't like, they had all this big army and all that stuff. It wasn't like that in the beginning. But he had to go through so much because he was determined. But had he been killed, America would probably still be under British rule, and it wouldn't be developed more than England. Remember, right now America is over 10 times more the bigger economy-wise, bigger than England. It wasn't going to be like that if it wasn't for George Washington. So when you kill someone like Thomas Sankara, when they kill someone like Patrice Lumumba, and sometimes they didn't have to kill anybody, they just had to choke the country. I'll give you an example. In Zambia, the first president of Zambia was Kenneth Kaunda, right? Kenneth Kaunda was working hard to end apartheid in South Africa. And this is the other thing. You guys think apartheid was ended because the West supported the Africans. No, it wasn't like that. And I'm going to do a video about this, but just to give you a heads up, apartheid ended because Africans, with the support of countries like Russia, Cuba, were fighting for themselves to be freed. Mozambique was controlled by South Africa. Africans fought for that. There was war. It was fighting. It wasn't like some sort of way someone just says, okay, take your country now. Africans fought for that under Samora Machel. Namibia, Africans fought for that. Angola, Africans fought for that. All these countries had South African influence. And when they started being taken over and becoming 100% African, South Africa was surrounded. South Africa had no choice but to say, you know what? Let's allow majority rule. There's a video coming just for this part so I can explain things. But today, most of you probably believe it was white people that gave up South Africa. Just to give up for black people. Nah, it wasn't like that. Okay? So, Kaunda was fighting apartheid. Jim Carter gave him 3 days when he was president, 3 days to listen to him and why Mandela should be freed and why apartheid was evil. And Jim Carter at the end of those 3 days told him, we are going to help you. I think what you're saying makes sense. Unfortunately, Jim Carter was only president for 4 years. And there came Ronald Reagan, who most Americans love, except for black people. But what he was doing in black America, he was doing on the African continent. He gave the president of Zambia, I think it was about an hour or two, and the president was explaining the evils of apartheid and why Mandela should be freed. Ronald Reagan never said anything. Just before the president of Zambia left for America to go have this meeting with the American president, he had explorers, oil explorers, I think they were from some European country, drilling in Zambia because there was a prospect that the country had oil. So they were drilling, trying to get some samples and all that stuff. And the president of Zambia was really, really looking forward for his country to have another source of revenue. At that time, there was only copper. So now he was going to have oil. I said, with this, if I can have this, I can develop the country. When he saw and chats to Ronald Reagan, the only thing Ronald Reagan did after that conversation was to shake hands and say, Mr. President, it would be good to do business with you in the future. He never said anything about, I'm going to help you free Mandela, I'm going to help you end apartheid. He never said anything. So the president jets back to Zambia. Guess what? All the people that were drilling for oil, all those companies, they've disappeared. And there was never another company that was interested in coming into Zambia to help them out. Excuse me. And then you have to realize that this time, the Zambians, after 200 years of British rule in Zambia, I think there was only about 15 Zambians that were educated. So we didn't have even the capacity at that time to start, because we've been so brainwashed over that 200 years of looking at us as if we are nobodies. So we didn't even think of doing anything to do with oil. We didn't even know. Up to now, Zambia has oil. In that same area on the other side, they just discovered oil in Zimbabwe. But oil now it's one of those things that don't really have a future. I don't see people relying on oil 30 years from now. It's like it's about to it's diminishing. Its importance is diminishing. They're still going to be useful, but 30% of it, which is related to car use, with the introduction of EVs, that is going to disappear. So when you have America trying to control every other country and sabotaging their success, and then they send all these Christians to go there and preach about, pretty much racism, to say, come to our countries, this is where we're better, we have Christians and all that. No wonder people want to come to your country. But then, Mr. Nasheed, that's not even your country, because black Americans don't have control of America. They're just a group of people that they're not independent. They're Americans, quote unquote, but you're not running anything. It's not your country. You can say, oh, my country. Yes, it's going to say that on your birth certificate. But as a group of people, you don't have control of anything. Here's how I know you don't even have control of anything. And that's because if you look at there's 56 countries in Africa. How many African Americans work there as US ambassadors to, let's say, Zambia? To most of them, it's still white people. You know why? Because if you were black and you go to Africa and you look at how people are living and the improvements that you can bring as an ambassador, you're going to have different views compared to what white people want. White people want to go there and dominate. That's their foreign policy. The foreign policy hasn't changed this since Kissinger designed it. And that's to kill anybody that wants their countries to be successful. And for America to be the shining star. But in the back, though, they are pretty much destroying every other country that wants to be successful. Japan became successful because it's still under America. South Korea, the same thing. Back in the 80s, Africa was getting $800 million from America. That's all the countries included in Africa. At the same time, a country like South Korea was getting $50 billion. So now South Korea develops and Africa doesn't. And people say, how come South Korea has developed while Zambia hasn't? Well, because they're getting the money. Because there was an effort by America to make sure that South Korea developed more than North Korea. So they can say, you know what? That's a message you send to the world. Belong to us. So Mr. Tariq Nasheed, your so-called country controls everyone. If you look at, let's say, the Afghanis, back in the 70s, if you read a book, it's about how to win friends and alienate, something like that. Was written by Dale Carnegie, Andrew Carnegie's brother. I'd like you to read it. Because in there, he explains on how Americans used to go to the Middle East to rewind their mindset. Because it was so peaceful. To go hang out with the Middle Eastern people. The Middle Eastern people didn't even want to come to America. They were enjoying their lives there. It was peaceful. And I'm saying this to go back to Afghanistan. Now, who went to Afghanistan and messed up the country? It's two European countries, two groups of white people, the Russians and the Americans. And because of whatever was happening between the two of them, Afghanistan was caught in the middle of it. America goes there and creates the Taliban to fight the Russians. And then once the Russians leave, America leaves the Taliban. Now the Taliban's have guns and everything, so they want to control now the area. They want to control everything in that country. So they kill everything and everyone because they've now been trained to kill. You know, something that was never there before was a peaceful country. So America goes there and trains them to kill. You know, and I'll give you another example. This is what Europeans do. Europeans go to many countries in this world and they teach people how to be savages, because that's how they want to prove something, to say, you see, these guys are savages. You know, there was a minister in South Africa who was giving a speech in Dubai. It was a Q&A where the public was asking her. And we're talking about, people were saying about, oh, why is there so much corruption in South Africa? Corruption and all this stuff. And she said, it was actually you guys who brought corruption to Africa. And people laughed. But there's so much truth in what she said. You know, because before we live in what is known as communalism. Not communism, but communalism. There was no stealing. I want you to look at what Lourenço Pinto, a Portuguese refugee, said about the Benin City when he visited there in the 1400s. They slept with no doors because the security, there was no one who wanted to steal. The security was great. They slept with no doors on because there was no need for anybody to steal. That was communalism. If you go all across Africa, all their houses had no doors on because no one was going to break into your house. There was no railways and pookies. That's why you can walk free today in most African countries at night, whereas in America you can't. Because in America, people have been designed to be like that by their government. And that's your place, Mr. Tariq Nasheed. The reason why we are coming there, it's because you don't want our countries to develop. No matter what you do, you find ways to destroy our development. But everything has a limit. Because believe me, when we come to your country, we're not forgetting our countries. We're just becoming international. So now we're making money in your country and sending it back to our country and building that. And we're going to continue doing that until we bring it to standard. 90% of Africans that live either in America or whatever, in the diaspora, they want to go back home. 90% of them. And the way the future is looking right now, believe me, we're going to leave your country. You can have it. So you have to think, when you're dealing with people like Tariq Nasheed, think about the way they are asking you questions and know how to answer them. And that's how I could have answered him. You know, I'm coming back to your country because your country is destroying my country. That's why now the Afghans have to come to America as refugees. You know, that's why now people in countries like Cote d'Ivoire, countries like Burkina Faso, they have to go to France because you've destroyed their countries. So that way you can get things for free to benefit your country. You know, people, wake up. Even Tariq Nasheed should wake up. You know, you think America is your country if you're black? Good luck. Thank you, guys. Thank you. And please subscribe. Goodbye.